Okay, tracking a lead vocal. Let's dive into it. I talked to you about the mic and the interface. Everything's connected to the laptop already. I've got my session set up here at 441 industry standard. I'm just going to keep things simple for now. I've got my Logic session open. I dragged in my instrumental that I'm going to be recording to, which is a song of mine called Somebody that I released. I'm going to reproduce these vocals here in this lesson. And I've set my session to 124 BPM because that matches the instrumental. The best way to find that is by adding the BPM counter to your song here and metering the BPM to see what it is, because you want your session locked in as you're recording. A, you want to record on the musical grid because that's going to be really helpful for your editing and everything else you're doing later. And B, it also is going to correlate the BPM of the session and the musical grid to the effects that we apply, like delays and things like that, actually correlate to the BPM of the session. So you got to make sure that that's all good to go. But we're locked and loaded here. The track is in place. It's on the grid. It locks up with the click. We're going to record to the click and the instrumental, of course. But let's get cracking on it here. So I have my mic plugged in. I'm going to do a handheld with this 7B, which is cool because this microphone actually isn't as sensitive to the touch as, like, say, a cardioid condenser, which is super sensitive. And this mic is actually kind of famous. There's a kind of an aggressive singer by the name of Henry Rollins from the 90s that, like, used to mosh while he would sing in the studio. So they gave him this microphone and would tape his hands to it so that it wouldn't fly out, and he would scream into it and do all that. So as you can hear, we got some signal already into this mic. I want to make sure that my input gain is nice and loud and clear, but not too loud because you don't want it to distort, because I'm actually going to be singing louder than I'm talking now. So we got to check that. And you should always double check this with your vocalist. Say, hey, check the mic, and they'll go check 1, 2, 1, 2. And you say, all right, now sing a little bit so I can hear how loud you're actually going to be. So let's do a test. If I'm testing, it's up here, much louder. Chest voice gets a little loud. And this mic is cool. You can bring it really close to your mouth. As you can tell, I'm right on it. And it's sounding pretty good. So you can always pull it back a little bit if you want to sing a little louder. Most people won't put their mouth right on the grill like I'm doing. And let's see here. It's sounding pretty good. I'm going to throw a little compression on in Logic here, stock compressor, by clicking this bar right above the EQ. And this is my default setting here. I love this vintage VCA compressor. Is one of my favorites out of the built-in Logic options up here. And let's see how we're looking. Turn it on. It's automatically going to add an auto gain boost, which is nice and loud. So let's actually turn that off for a second. And I'm going to compress it. You don't really want to go past -5. We're going to do another test and see how that's going here. Hey, testing. It's compressing. It's doing a lot of compression here, compressing pretty hard, but I'm okay with that because you can always change it later, right? We're not kind of stuck with that. So I'm going to bring the auto gain back up because that was sounding pretty nice. Check 1, 2. Hey, yeah. Testing. All right. So I turned my instrumental down because my instrumental here has a limiter on it, so it's very loud. And we want to be able to hear the vocals over the music. So the music is there to sing to. And this goes for your sessions. If you're recording a vocalist, you want to make sure they have a nice balance in their headphones. So let's check out here real quick. This is my instrumental. I'm going to turn the click off for a second. And let's test. Hey, yeah. I can hear myself pretty well, but I have to sing pretty loud. I do have to sing pretty loud, and this song kind of has a loud vocal anyway, so I think that'll work. Let me just turn my headphones down. They're super loud, and maybe that's kind of... Hey, yeah, checking 1, 2. Yeah, I can hear it. I'm going to pull the instrumental down a little bit, and I think we're ready to go. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to set up my vocals in my song. Don't start here until the 17th bar. So I have a 4-count lead-in set up. And I'm going to basically come in a little bit before that because the vocal is a pickup. So let me see here. Let me find my key in the song because the vocal is pretty high, which we're going to get into tuning later. But let's see here. Really need somebody. Okay, let me give it a shot. I'm going to do an 8-bar count-in. And because I told you I have a 4-bar count-in, which is pretty stock in Logic, I could start right here and record 2, 3, 4, right? But I said it's a pickup. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go from where I was originally going to start back 1. So now it's going to go through an 8 count. So technically, I'm going to come in around 6. Let's see what happens here. I really need somebody, yeah. Someone just like you. I really need somebody, yeah. Someone just like you, just like you, just like you. I really need somebody, yeah. All right, cool. That actually wasn't so bad. It's really high for me, but it is what it is. Let's listen back real quick. As you can see, my waveform looks very nice. I got a nice solid signal from my interface. Nothing is clipping. Nothing is hitting the ceiling here, which is what we want to avoid. There are a couple peaks, but our compression is going to definitely help control that, which is what that does. And let's listen back real quick. I really need somebody, yeah. Someone just like you. I really need somebody, yeah. Someone just like you. Okay, cool. We don't have to run through the whole thing. I think it sounded very solid. Pretty happy with that take. It's going to be good enough for us to work with here. One other trick I wanted to mention is that when you are recording another vocalist, it always helps to give them a little bit of reverb because it sounds so dry, right? And it kind of gives them a little bit of flexibility to work with. So what I like to do, by meaning like they kind of work with the reverb sound and the room of the sound to kind of like float their voice a little bit. And it just gives them a little more confidence because it doesn't sound so raw and upfront and dry, you know? So what I do is I set up a little bus, and I'm going to throw on here the chroma verb, which I should have done before I tracked, but since I was just kind of going through the basics of it, you know, that was essentially as basic as it gets. So it automatically comes in on the bus with the dry all the way down, which is what you want, and the wet all the way up. And now we can listen back here and send it through, which we're going to change this later. This is more for like tracking purposes. But I really need somebody, yeah. Cool. Adds a little room. We can even make it a little longer. Someone just like you. Nice. You can even add an EQ. You can EQ it in the reverb. Or I really need somebody. Kind of helps to cut some of the lows out a little bit also because it gets a lot of room sound that you don't want on the reverb. And that's it. We're not going to get too heavy into EQing yet, and we're not even going to keep this reverb. We're going to change it later on. In the next lesson, we're going to dive into throwing auto-tune on a vocal like this. And of course, we're going to get into other things like doubling and plugins a little later on. I'll see you in a minute.